The Boston Red Sox are the closest they've been to a playoff spot in years, but can they finally seal the deal this time?
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate, and also currently the host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. So make sure you're tuning in every single day because it's been a fun season for this Red Sox team, and you won't want to miss any Red Sox talk, especially at this time of the year. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Red Sox, and this Red Sox team has been playing good baseball this year, and a lot of the fan base seemingly is buying into this team for the first time in a few years because they are in playoff contention. What's it going to take for them to actually close that door and get the job done and be a playoff team? I am here with a special guest today who's going to talk to me all about this Red Sox team and where they're at right now, Tom Carroll of WEEI. And he's also kind of been all over the place in the sports industry like myself. We both used to work at ESPN, so lots in common there, both big Boston sports fans. So Tom, happy to have you. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Yeah, Gabby, thanks for having me. It's been a really fun Red Sox season. It's been up and down. There's been highs of highs, lows of lows, and now here we are really in the playoff picture for the first time in 3-4 years here. I mean, last year I know they were kind of in the mix and then it petered out. So it's an exciting time to be a Red Sox fan.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny you say highs and lows because unfortunately they came off of a rough series that they lost against the Pirates at home. And those are the types of series where you really need to win at this time of year. So that was definitely a disappointing series as a whole. At least they were able to salvage a win in that series. But those are the types of teams that you really need to be able to take advantage of, especially at this point in the season when all these games are crucial.
Yeah, I remember coming out of the Yankees series where they absolutely whooped New York, which was so beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Coming out of that series, they had, I believe it was 22 of 31 remaining games were against teams with records 500 or below. And obviously Pittsburgh fell into that category. And when you have Peyton Tolle giving you a first career start the way he did against Skeens, out pitching the best pitcher in baseball, and you can't get that guy a win, that sort of sets a bad tone for what this team is going to be able to accomplish come October. Like, I think there is kind of a cap on what this team is able to do. I think it's probably ALDS, maybe game 3 of a wild card series, but I mean, look, all you got to do is get in baseball and you're in the mix. But like you said, it's a series like that in this last month when you close the month with a series against the Tigers and Blue Jays, those last 2 series of the year, you got to start stacking wins against these bad teams.
Yeah, and that was definitely something early on in the season that held the Red Sox back too, was they were not winning series against teams they should have been beating. And now, they're lucky to be in the playoff picture now. But imagine where they could be now if they actually capitalized in series they clearly should have won earlier on in the season. It really makes you wonder.
Yeah, it took him a second to round into form there. It really seemed like moving Devers was something that actually had to happen, which in the moment, coming off that home run he hit against the Yankees to bring them back up again on Father's Day, we're all thinking, okay, Devers in the 2-hole. That's like the only thing that we can really count on in this offense. Yeah. They trade him. Everyone is running around with their heads cut off. The world is on fire. They go out to San Francisco. They have a bad series. I think they had a bad series against the Mariners too. It was like a bad West Coast swing. And then out of that, it was 10 in a row heading into the All-Star break or something like that. And it's really just been go time since that Devers trade. So credit to Breslow and the power structure at Fenway for actually understanding the temperature of that clubhouse and saying, we got to move this guy. So early in the year, he ended up rounding into being a great DH for you, but clearly like the heaviness of him being who he was in that clubhouse wasn't good for that team. And plus it took Trevor Story a little bit of time to get healthy and be who he is. And plus Roman Anthony. Oh yeah, that guy. He's finally aboard here too. So it took a second, but now they kind of have all the pieces gelling at the right time. But as we've discussed, you have to have all those pieces gelling at the right time and actually hit with runners in scoring position and actually get a guy like Peyton Tolley a win when he gives you a start like he does. So it's like I don't want to repeat what I just said, but it's that cap showing itself, right? It's like they're one notch below being like a true World Series juggernaut type team.
Yeah, I agree with you. It feels like they're like so close, but there's still something that's missing with this team right now. And that's why I do agree with you. I don't have expectations of this team going to the World Series. Obviously, they could surprise us, which would be fantastic and the best surprise in the world. But like, I just feel like they're still maybe a year away from being like a true World Series team. I think if you look at this team next year with a couple key additions, they could be very, very good. But I feel like the goal for this year was to get back to the playoffs because obviously it's been a while since we've been able to see baseball at Fenway in October. And I feel like that was one of the biggest goals. And with, Craig Breslow and Sam Kennedy making it clear that the goal was to get back to the playoffs and be a contending team, it feels like now they're following through with that. And I do give Breslow some credit because he knew he was going to take a lot of heat for that Devers trade. Like he knew that people were not going to welcome that when it happened. I mean, so many people were having breakdowns on Twitter over the fact that they just traded Rafael Devers. And I think people were just in shock that they actually pulled the trigger on something like that. But something that Breslow has shown is that he doesn't really care if he has to take that heat in the moment because he's looking out more for the longer term future of the team and what's best for the Boston Red Sox. And now he's sitting here like, see, I told you that I knew where I was going with that. And now it creates a lot more opportunity for guys like you mentioned, Roman Anthony, being able to be in the lineup regularly, and you can kind of have more roster flexibility with rotating guys in. And I feel like it's been great for the growth of a player like him being able to be in the lineup every day. And it really makes you wonder too, if you look at where the San Francisco Giants have been since that Devers trade too, it's definitely kind of telling now with the way things have gone between these two teams.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like they took our problem and they thought, oh, we'll be able to fix this. And they weren't able to fix it. And it actually got worse because now he's not hitting. So yeah, I give Breslow a lot of credit for having the cojones to make that move. But where you can still ding the guy is they're clearly still a bat and an arm away. And that's really what it comes down to. And I know at the deadline, he had said, well, we got uncomfortable and teams just didn't want to take our deal and yada, yada. Okay, we're not in that room, right? But this is a team that clearly could have benefited from Joe Ryan. This is a team that clearly could have benefited from any of the bats that moved at the deadline. And I'm not saying that there were true like world beater type all-star caliber guys outside of Joe Ryan that were available or moved. There were some, but the Red Sox didn't do enough there to help this year's team make that happen. And they better have a plan for the offseason because like you and I have both mentioned, it feels like they're a year away, but in being a year away, they're also that arm and bat away. So they need to do something this offseason to get those pieces. Maybe it is Joe Ryan still, and the price will be more palatable in the offseason. So that's what I'm waiting to see is sort of what Breslow can do because he had a nice offseason leading into this year. He got Bregman, he got Chapman, he got Crochet. Like that, three best players arguably on the team. So, you give him credit there, but it's what are you going to do this offseason to continue to add? And then you have Roman Anthony a year older, and then you have Peyton Tolley, who's only started one game, but let's be real, the guy looks like a stud.
Yeah.
You have him a year older. Hopefully you have Marcelo Meyer actually healthy leading into next season. Christian Campbell a little bit older. Maybe he's back in the mix here in the majors for next year. Rafaela hopefully playing one position full time next season. Do you move Duran in the offseason? Is he someone that can help bring in that arm or a more stable bat? But again, Duran has been playing great, so maybe you hold on to him too. Like there's still a fair amount of moving pieces here that would help this team get to that next level. But at least for this year, there is fun baseball to watch. And as I mentioned, just get in the tournament in baseball and you have a chance.
We'll get you right back to my conversation with WEEI's Tom Carroll. But first, hey, Locked On Red Sox listeners, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code SEASON and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out any time to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code SEASON for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code SEASON. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Great deal, right? Make sure you take advantage of it. And also, we all have a habit sometimes of planning things last minute. My friends are notorious for this, deciding the day of, let's go to this sporting event. That's where Game Time can save your life. It's a great ticketing vendor because it makes sure that it guarantees the lowest prices, shows a view for your seat so it's not obstructed, and makes it great to be able to know, okay, I know there's going to be tickets available even though it's a couple hours before game time. That's why I don't use any other ticketing vendor anymore. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. I'm telling you, Game Time is the absolute best, so make sure you take advantage of that the next time you want to purchase tickets to any live event. The regular season completely goes out the window once the playoffs start, and we've definitely seen there be cases where you could be the best team in baseball in the regular season and then completely fall apart in the playoffs, and you just really never know what's going to happen once you get in, and team chemistry is big in the postseason. And I feel like this Red Sox team has really good clubhouse vibes overall. These guys seem to enjoy playing together, and that's something that's great to see. But it definitely was disappointing, the lack of moves at the trade deadline. I was a little bit surprised about the lack of a first base move at the deadline too, because that was an area of need that Breslow had even acknowledged was an area of need. And it just felt like it was really underwhelming that they didn't really seem to go all in for big moves at the deadline, where other teams in the AL you saw make more aggressive moves to make their teams better at the trade deadline. And I feel like this so far has been the pattern with Breslow, where he kind of misses at the trade deadline and then tries to make up for it in the offseason. So this is going to be a really crucial offseason for him to really invest in this team and make the moves necessary. One thing I will say that's been a surprise with this team is kind of the emergence of Lucas Giolito and Brayan Bello, and really how good both of them have been for this Red Sox rotation. And I worried about that going into the season. I said, it just feels like the Red Sox are banking a little bit too much on these guys panning out. But I definitely did not expect Lucas Giolito, especially, to be as good as he truly has been for this rotation. So they've kind of gotten lucky there where they were able to say, okay, we believe in Giolito and Bello to really step up in this rotation, because outside of Crochet, everybody else in the rotation kind of going into the season was a question mark. So I feel like they've really gotten lucky with those two being able to step up overall in the way that they have. Obviously, Brayan Bello's most recent start wasn't, his best. The Red Sox still were able to pull out a win, which was nice. But those two guys especially, I feel like, have been among the biggest surprises with this team this year.
Absolutely. I think where you are right now is, in huge part because of those guys being true number 2 and number 3 starters in your rotation. And before the season started, that was not a true lock, right? Like Bello, he had a strong end to last season, but it was hard to get the taste out of our mouths of how 2024 started. He's your opening day starter. He signs this contract, and then it was just disappointing all the way through around July. Then he started turning it around, and he's looked like a different guy since debuting in mid-April here. And Giolito was just a massive question mark, right?
Yeah.
Like you brought him in and then he was out immediately, right? So it was, you knew what he was earlier in his career, a guy that had thrown a no-hitter for the White Sox, a big body guy, but it was just a total unproven, and a guy that had become sort of a journeyman later in his career. And now he's fully embraced Boston. He's amazing at Fenway Park. My reservation with these two guys, and look, they can keep doing what they're doing and proving me wrong, so to speak, because I still sort of don't trust them fully.
In the playoffs, I agree.
Yeah, like in a playoff scenario, like we've never seen Bello pitch in the postseason. Yep. And Giolito is someone that hasn't thrown over 170 innings in like 3 years. So Cora said the other day that there's not going to be an inning limit or sort of load management like the NBA likes to call it with these guys down the stretch. Maybe they actually need to start doing that. And then that's where you can go back to dinging Breslow. They don't really have a ton of starting pitching depth to help kind of mitigate that and allow those guys to be your 1, 2, 3 in the postseason. Again, they've had a lot of starting pitching health issues, right? Hunter Dobbins goes down, and Dick Fitz was hurt for a while, and Sandoval wasn't able to come back this year. Another guy that they signed and then was out immediately. So it's a weird spot. Like, you trust Crochet. He has totally lived up to the billing.
100%.
But Giolito and Bello, it's still sort of like, great, keep doing what you're doing. But now also you got to still prove yourself when it comes time to play baseball in these big spots, because they haven't done it in their career.
Yeah, that's definitely a bit of a concern. And that again goes back to them not making a big pitching move at the deadline. And obviously, they brought in Dustin May. I don't think they ever brought him in with the intention of him being a number 2, because again, they trust Giolito and Bello, but there's definitely a risk still to take there with those two, because it could be a really bad look for the Red Sox if those two completely fall apart in the postseason, because then people are going to be saying, well, they could have gotten a true number 2 starter to put behind Crochet at the trade deadline to help them in the postseason, and they didn't do that. So there's a kind of a lot on the line here when it comes to those two. And again, Brayan Bello, I think he's made some really big strides over the last couple of years, and especially from last year to this year, the improvement has been tremendous with him. But the playoff atmosphere is so different, and it's just always so tough to know how somebody's going to perform under the biggest stage like that, with so many more eyes on you and just so much more pressure on every single one of these games. So that transition from the regular season to the postseason, I think that's going to determine ultimately how far this Red Sox team can go come October, because we could see them get completely stomped on in the wild card round, which would be really unfortunate and would again echo that sentiment of Breslow didn't do enough to really elevate this team at the trade deadline, because he obviously has enough faith in these guys that he has, which in a way is good that you trust your players, but also like if you really trust them enough, help them out and get guys who can help push them over that hump, which it doesn't feel like they really have the pieces to do that. Get you right back to that interview again, but sometimes it can be really hard to manage your finances. I know that because I've experienced firsthand. I don't even know what I'm paying for half the time. That's exactly where Monarch Money comes in. And Monarch Money is an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. And I know for me, I had put off organizing my finances for a long time, but I'm so glad I did this because it does all the heavy lifting for me and helps me link all of my accounts in minutes so that I can clearly see that I'm spending too much money on subscription services. It's been a lifesaver and it will be for you too. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure you take advantage of that. It definitely will save your life. And also, Locked On listeners, we have an important request for you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thank you for helping us out. This really will help us to help enhance the viewing and listening experience for you. So make sure you fill out that survey.
If you listen to what Breslow said, he's like, well, the price would have been astronomical and we were willing to get uncomfortable and they didn't want to take the deal, yada, yada. And then there was some reporting that the Twins were asking for Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer, or one or both, there was all sorts of different reports, but essentially that Roman Anthony was involved in the deal. There's also been some reporting over the last couple of days that Peyton Tolley was involved in talks as well. And now in hindsight, you're like, no, obviously we're not giving up Roman Anthony. Yeah. Obviously we're not giving up Peyton Tolley here. So it's hindsight's 2020, right? So in the moment, it was okay to be frustrated with Breslow. But now it's also okay to realize why he wouldn't have moved those guys. And it really the criticism really should be, from my view, is maybe he was too focused in on Joe Ryan. Maybe there were other pitchers out there where the price could have been a little cheaper and you could have gone out and actually acquired that guy, because Dustin May clearly ain't it.
Yeah.
And, Walker Buehler, a guy that they brought in the offseason, it was clear early in the year that he wasn't going to be a guy that is going to be helpful down the stretch here. So the more I think about Bello, he's a guy that really feeds off that crowd. I have actually glass half full vibes for how Bello will be in a postseason setting in Fenway. The road, I'm a little bit more afraid, but Bello at Fenway feels electric to me. I'm excited to see that happen. And but the thing with Giolito, the highs are fantastic, but when he has those stinkers, like the few stinkers he's had this year, they're awful. I can't get that game. I can't get that game in Philly out of my head. That was so bad. Yeah. So
I was at that game.
They ended up winning that game, that was one of the craziest baseball games I've watched in a long time. But
it was fun to be at once they started coming back, but that was dreadful to watch.
That game alone, you could do a full oral history on just the craziness of it. But it's going to be fascinating to see how those guys hold up as your 2 and 3 starter, because in theory, these playoff rotations, you're really just going with your top 3 guys, and we'll see how they manage Tolley down the stretch here. I think they're going to be very, very careful with him. He's super young. He's never pitched that deep into the season before. So we're going to have to wait and see. I could see them using him more as the bridge guy, coming in for like extended bullpen stretches. I don't personally think he's going to be a guy that's going to be starting postseason games for you. But again, he's had one major league start. So we'll have to see kind of how things look down the stretch here. Like if he's absolutely dominant over the next month and the first start wasn't an aberration here, maybe you just ride the hot hand. But we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, no, the wait and see is definitely key with a player like that. It's a lot of pressure to put on somebody like that who has such a small sample size of pitching in the majors so far and expecting him to go out there and make a start in the postseason. So I would be interested in seeing what they decide there. But where things are right now, would you roll out Brayan Bello as the number 2 after Crochet and then Giolito as the 3 if you were to go 1, 2, 3 in a postseason series?
I think so. I think that's where I would go. I just trust Bello a little bit more than Giolito. I think even when Bello has his bad days, like yesterday, for example, Bello wasn't great, but Cora said it post-game. Like former Bello on a bad day like that, it would be like 3 2/3 and he'd be out of there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Bello still got you deep-ish into that game, and he still got to 100 pitches. So the guy has, I think, sort of figured out when I'm not at my best, how do I continue to eat innings and survive and advance, which is crucial in the postseason when you're playing really good teams. And it's not going to be a situation where you can go, 7 innings and only give up 2 runs like every game. Like that's just not going to happen. So to have a guy like that can battle through these things, I think is huge. So I personally would have him as your number 2 and you go from there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you too, because I feel like Giolito's bad days have been a lot worse than Bello's bad days. And so that really makes you feel like you don't want to experience those types of Giolito starts in the postseason. And Bello, I feel like, has earned the right to be that number 2 starter in the playoffs. And I mean, obviously, Garrett Crochet has been everything that we've wanted from him and more. That trade was so worth it. I know there were people that were upset about what we gave up for him. But I mean, you needed a guy like that because it's been a while since the Red Sox have had a true number 1 starting pitcher. And Crochet has given us that. And so I feel like, I do that trade 10,000 times over. 100%.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like every single day of the week, I'm making that trade. He's been fantastic. And he just really is a difference maker to really make this Red Sox rotation feel a lot more competitive, because even last year when they were sort of in the mix, there was no really true number 1 starter. You were basically taking, Tanner Houck and saying he's probably our number 1 because he's been probably throwing the best out of everybody, but he wasn't a true number 1 either. Whereas like you have a bona fide ace now at the top of the rotation, and now you have to kind of continue to build around that and figure out who's going to fit into that rotation moving forward. Is Hunter Dobbins somebody that they in the longer term value that they could see being part of that rotation? Obviously Peyton Tolley's in the mix. Kyle Harrison is another interesting name as somebody who could slot into the mix there too. So there's a lot of young pitchers that they probably see as part of the rotation moving forward, but I still feel like, you can roll out Crochet and Bello, but somebody else as a true number 2 to throw in there in the off season would give you a really solid 1, 2, 3. And then you can kind of experiment with everybody else. And that really feels like you have a lot more complete of a rotation going into next year.
Yeah. I honestly, when you said Houck, I'm like, oh yeah, Tanner Houck. I mean, what a guy from last year who was fantastic. And then him sort of petering out in 2024 coincided with the Red Sox petering out. And I think he maybe started petering out to not overuse that term slightly before they did. But yeah, he was bad to start the year, and maybe it was all injury related. Maybe that's what sort of led to him being out for the year. It was a little thing that turned into a big thing. I don't really know, but yeah, what he can bring you in the future is another huge question mark for this team, and they're going to have to kind of square that away. it kind of reminds me of what the Patriots receivers room looked like during training camp, where it's a lot of dudes, but you don't love them all, but there's just a lot of bodies to sort through. Yeah. And it's like, wait, there's 8 of these guys? What, like, why do we need 8 of them? And then over the last few days, you've seen, okay, Kendrick Bourne's gone, Javon Baker's gone. So it's like, eventually it's going to round into form here. And we're just going to have to give it some time to see who actually comes in and takes those spots. But, Hunter Dobbins coming back from injury, Tanner Houck coming back from injury, Sandoval coming back from injury. So all these guys, what is Dick Fitz going to be moving forward for this team? There's definitely that back half to that rotation after your Crochet and Bello and I guess Giolito now, that's sort of like your 1, 2, 3 heading into next year. The 4, 5, and then sort of the depth behind it. It really is interesting.
Yeah, there's just so many people that you can kind of put in there to maybe play around with and experiment with. And it's interesting you mention a lot of bodies to work with, because the outfield situation is definitely also an interesting situation for the Red Sox to navigate now moving forward. Obviously, Roman Anthony being what he has been great. But then there's also, Wilyer Abreu, who is really valuable, especially offensively, to this Red Sox team. And I feel like his bat has definitely been missed in the lineup here over these last few weeks when he's been hurt. And then obviously you have Jarren Duran in the mix, Cedar Rafaela, who the Red Sox have already extended. And then there's Yoshida, who kind of is more of a DH, but sometimes has to play in the outfield due to injuries. And then there's Rob Refsnyder. So there's just a lot of outfielders in the mix right now. Then you have the Password, who's back in AAA now, but somebody who definitely has potential in the future. So how do you think that gets handled? Do you think that we definitely see one of these outfielders get moved for pitching in the offseason?
Yeah, I think that has to happen. I mean, those are your good assets, and you have a lot of them. So if you need to bolster the starting pitching, you're just not going to be able to hang on to all these outfielders. At least I don't think so. And I just don't think that would be smart baseball to do that. But look, a lot of these guys can play. And it's part of the strength of your team right now is that you have this flexibility with these guys. And you have certain guys that are like freaking Lou Gehrig against lefties. And so so it's crazy that you have this sort of flexibility, and it's something that is a problem, but is also a strength, right? It's sort of a weird spot that they're in. And it goes back to that, like having too many bodies thing. It's like the analogy in football where if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterback. That's not necessarily the case here, but like Rafaela needs to be in center field every day. That just has to be a guarantee for me personally. I think he's the best center fielder in baseball. Duran in left, sure, I like it. You got Wilyer Abreu, who won a Gold Glove in right. Like, that feels like a really strong outfield to me. But then you got Roman Anthony, and Carroll wants him to play the field. But does it make sense to keep him at DH? To me, that's sort of like the ideal setup, but I understand what Cora is saying, where he wants that guy playing the field. And so you have him in that DH spot when you need to, but then when you have guys that can come in and hit lefty pitching the way they do, you can kind of move Roman Anthony around. Does that take Wilyer out of the lineup? Does that take Duran out of the lineup? I think that Rafael should be in center field, period, regardless of what's going on. So, and like maybe you spell him with Duran in center if there's certain slumps happening or what have you, certain pitching matchups they like. But yeah, it's a weird situation where a strength is also a weakness. And maybe weakness isn't even the word. It's just like,
it's just like a tough situation
it's just a hard thing to navigate, even though it is a strength because you have all these guys that can play.
Yeah, like it's a good problem to have when you have all
good problem to have
in that area. But it's like, what do you do? And I do see what you're saying, that there is a way where you could kind of keep all of them in the mix if you really wanted to. If they said, okay, Roman is primarily going to DH, then you could theoretically have the other three in the outfield every day. But then you're really missing out, I feel like, on addressing other areas of the roster that really are needed, because they could get a really solid starting pitcher, I feel like, if they put one of those outfielders into the package. And then the other question becomes, if they do say, okay, we're going to keep, Duran, Rafaela, and Willier in the outfield, and we're going to have Roman Anthony DH a lot of the time, then what happens with Yoshida? Because he's also just kind of there, and he's somebody I know that people were hoping would have gotten moved in the offseason. And so that's another tough one too, is it's like, do you basically just say, okay, we know we're paying Yoshida this kind of money, but he's not going to play regularly because we just have this young, talented outfield and we don't really need him anymore.
Yeah, and also he can't play the outfield. So it's like, hey, do you want this really overpaid DH that will never play the field for you and you give us a really good starting pitcher? Like
nobody's gonna want
it's like no one wants that deal. Like, I understand why Yoshida's still here. And look, he's hit for you in spots here and there. But he's sort of just an extra body at this point. I'm not really too worried about Yoshida. It's funny, Abreu is someone who I think is super underrated, and clearly he started out the year incredibly hot. His glove, I think people forget the guy won a Gold Glove last year, and he has, the ability offensively to make huge impact on games. But again, you want Roman Anthony, in theory, is going to be the future in right field if Rafael is going to be the long-term solution in center field, right? And, maybe Roman Anthony's in left too if Duran moves, but you get the point. He's going to be in one of those corner outfield spots. But maybe this year you just say to the guy, look, we're going to get you a ton of pregame off-day work in the outfield, but for this year, it makes sense for you to be our DH because it gives us this, and this as far as flexibility goes. And you don't probably say outright to him, because we're going to move one of these two other guys in the offseason, it's going to free up that spot for you. You probably don't say that to him, but that's probably what you can put out as your plan internally. And the front office can say, look, this Roman Anthony as DH thing is a short-term solution to fix our problem. And then in the off season, we move Abreu or Duran for starting pitching. And then that gives Roman Anthony his chance to be the guy in the outfield.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I do think when it comes to the Roman Anthony situation, this kid moving forward is likely going to be the face of the franchise. And so
I think he already is.
Yeah.
Now
that Devers isn't here anymore. It's
crazy. He's just an absolute pro, being at these games, being on the field before games. He just carries himself with such a presence. Yeah. Guys come up to him. It's not like the young guy going up to veterans. Dudes are approaching him, and it's really cool to see. And you almost want to wait for the next shoe to drop. It's is this just too good to be true? But I don't know. He totally looks the part. He's rounded into form even more at the plate than he was when he first came up. He's hitting for power now. The guy is just everything you want in a young player who came in with that type of hype. And, if it weren't for what's going on out in Sacramento/Oakland, I think he'd be the runaway rookie of the year in the American League.
Yeah, he's definitely very mature. He just has a very mature presence, really, both on the field and off the field. His plate discipline for his age is amazing. And just his off the field presence and his mannerisms and the way he carries himself. You never would guess that he's as young as he is if you didn't know that already, because he just doesn't present himself that way. And that's the type of baseball player that you want representing the Boston Red Sox organization. And that's why I'm so happy he got this really well-deserved big payday, because this is a kid you want to hold on to, because he just has the work ethic and the attitude to succeed at the major league level.
Yeah, honestly, they may have gotten a bargain with this guy at that price, given what guys make. And, maybe at the end of that deal, what is it, 8 years? I forget the number exactly. He's going to be in store for an Ohtani type payday. And maybe it's not going to be like that, but who knows 8 years from now, what money is going to look like. Right. So, I think you can get that guy at that rate right now. you sort of have a bargain on your hands, because he's looking to me like one of the best hitters in baseball.
That was Tommy Carroll from WEEI that you just heard from. Hope you enjoyed part 1 of my interview with him. Much more to go with that, so be sure to tune into the show tomorrow for part 2, as well as continuing to make Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every day. But if you're also a college football fan, this is another big moment for Locked On. Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. You definitely will not want to miss that, so make sure that you check that out. Like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.